And now, after years of planning, sweating, and going broke, here is the Boots and Whiskey Podcast with Jim Belisle.
And it left the media.
Why they would give this man a podcast is anyone's guess.
Then there is what could only be a bizarre coincidence or something else.
Welcome to the Boots and Whiskey Podcast with Jim Belisle.
Fat, drunk, and stupid is no way to go through life, son.
Country music and fine moonshine. Finally, a podcast that lets it all hang out.
Let's level with America.
Got your boots? Ready for some whiskey?
These boots are made for walking.
One of these days, these boots are gonna walk all over you.
And now, the Boots and Whiskey Podcast with Jim Belisle.
Hey everyone, Jim here, Boots and Whiskey Podcast. Welcome to another episode of the show. Today this week we're going to do just one for you. We have David Brown here on the show. Dave's been doing some cool shit, and this is one of those guys that's like the real deal, right? You heard What's His Nuts that did that song Richmond Over Richmond or whatever, right? But like, I think Dave is like an authentic version of that. Like, has a lot of good shit to say, you know, is just the real deal, you know, like you see it all the time, right? Where you get these guys or these girls, right, that are doing everything the right way. And like are right there. I think Dave's right there to like blow the roof off of everything, right? Like check him out, right? He's got some cool shit going on, get some dates coming up. Go see him if you can, you know, and if you can't, I get it. You're not in the area, whatever, but like follow what he's doing because he's doing some incredible shit. And he's a hell of a fucking dude. The conversation at hand, or this conversation you're about to hear and see, is exactly, you know, I say it all the time, right? If you watch this show or listen to this show, I say it all the time. This is exactly the kind of show we strive for. And I could have talked to Dave for hours and hours and hours about life. Like, there's a lot of things that Dave and I have in common, and he's a good dude, man. He deserves everything and more. Like, he deserves more than what he's getting. I'll tell you that right now. So if you're watching this or listening to this and you can give Dave a fucking shot, dude, do it, because he's the real deal. And I know I've said he's the real deal probably like 16 times. It probably sounds like I'm fucking faking it, but I swear to God, like, I've had conversation with this dude off the record, and one of the most sweetest, gentlest, loving dudes in the entire world. And you know, he checks in on me, I check in on him, and he's become a real good friend. So take that for what you will, and sit back, relax, enjoy the episode, and we will see you on the flip side, guys. Cheers.
Hell yeah, sounds good to me.
Well, welcome to the show, finally, after all the moving around and technical difficulties and all that shit. So thanks for being here.
Oh man, thanks for having me. Yeah, it caught me by surprise or whatever. Yeah, that man, sickness, and then the damn weather, and then everything else going wrong that could go wrong.
Yeah.
But you know, here now, so that's all that matters.
Yeah. So how are things down there in Texas?
Oh man, it's good now that ice is gone, because all that does is, I mean, I can drive on it left and right, but man, these people here that moved here from, you know, California and all this other stuff don't even know, you know, ice from the ice in their, you know, refrigerator.
Yeah.
And so they just drive, you know, ridiculously, and then it ends up, you know, people getting hit and everything else. And I'm already tired of getting hit.
I bet. So are you from Texas originally?
Yeah, I was born in East Texas, over in Linden, Texas, and then grew up, you know, a big part of my childhood over in Arkansas, of the Ozarks. And then when my granddad finally passed away, I moved back to Texas or whatever, and moved to the DFW area, and been around this area basically ever since.
Nice. So how the hell do you become a Bruins fan? Because we've talked about that a little bit, like on the side.
Yeah, man, I don't know. I've always loved hockey, especially, from an early age and everything. And that was just the team that, spoke to me. And I've been a diehard Bees fan ever since, especially, when Zdeno Chara was still playing with them. And so that was my man. That was the guy right there, man.
Yeah.
Like every fight. And not only that, he was a sniper from outside. It was great.
Yeah, it's funny, like when you live in an area, like obviously Boston is a big sports city, right? So everybody loses their mind over
Oh, yeah.
every team, no matter win or lose, right? So it's always hard for me to like think about people in other places rooting for our teams, and not because they're not good, but because it's like everybody has their own team in their area, right? So like to me, it doesn't make sense to root for somebody else.
Yeah.
But you know what? I'll take it. I mean,
Yeah. I mean, it probably doesn't help either that, I guess with the Stars and stuff, they've got so many like blackout dates or whatever, even when they're playing at home, so you can't even watch them anyway. So
really?
I guess that also helps out with, people choosing other teams. Yeah. It's ridiculous. Like all the, arguments going on with all the streaming services and networks and stuff like that. Anytime they play at home, it's a blackout area, even though we live, 35, 40 miles down the road. But then when they play away, you can still watch it. It makes absolutely no sense.
No, it doesn't make sense to me is hockey in climates that don't get ice naturally usually. You know what I mean? Like Texas having a hockey team is weird to me, and Florida having hockey teams is weird to me. Like, you know what I mean? Like it's fine.
Yeah.
Southern California having hockey, like, come on. But yeah, it's especially,
Yeah.
what was it last weekend watching Tampa and the Bruins play outside in Tampa? Like, fuck,
Oh, yeah. That game.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that game. That game. Yeah, we won't talk about it because maybe we'll get fined for talking about it, I guess. So
More than likely.
we notoriously here, we kind of just shoot the shit, as I'm sure you could figure out already. But how do you get into the music thing?
Well, from an early age, my grandparents, would always tell me, like, oh, our family's this, our family's this. And it didn't really click until I got, older, which, directly related, blood related to Johnny Horton. And that kind of like rung a bell and kind of resonated. And so then once I got a little older too, when I was growing up in Linden, Texas, only time that I knew this guy was like, oh, the man with the big bus. Well, we lived and I grew up, 4 houses down from Don Henley's parents. And so every time he'd come off the road, he would always park his tour bus or whatever and park it in the bank that was, it'd been closed down forever. And that was about the only place he could park it. And that's the only way that I knew about this guy. And then I just, started playing back up in Arkansas. I was about maybe 12, 13. And, closest place, even Walmart, was like 25, 30 miles away one way. And so I got a pawn shop guitar and one of those Walmart chord chart posters and just sat down and I just started digging in and kept going and going and going. And then, I didn't really take it serious until I, got out of the Army. And then I was like, you know what, it's time to, go all in, start writing these songs and getting them out there and doing what I can, see where it goes. And so far, it's been going, it's well for the standpoint that I'm in at the moment.
Now, did you think you would be, when you first started, right? Did you think you would be where you are now?
Oh, no. I mean, even then, like where I'm at now, it's still, just now cutting the teeth, getting in there. But one thing that I wanted to make sure that I did before I started taking it serious and playing shows and releasing music was to just network. So that way, once I took it serious, that navigation part was a lot smoother and easier instead of just starting from, square one on everything. And so with the people that I've met and the artists and producers and everybody that's involved in it, they've, it's the right people and they, guide me correctly instead of just, some Joe Blow or whatever that, plays music and says he plays music and taking their advice. And so that's kind of helped a lot with my growth and my direction and keeping my mind in the, in the game, so to speak, because there's so many times that, even other artists are like, man, I don't even know if it's worth it. I might as well just, lay it down. It's not doing nothing. But another thing that one of my close mentors, Jeff Canada, told me, he was like, man, he was like, if you're ever in it to, thinking that you're going to get rich or famous or anything, he's like, you stop right there. He was like, because it's all for the wrong reasons. And I was like, you know what? That's right. And that's what kind of kicked my butt back into high gear, because, I only do it for the music. As long as I can pay my bills, pay my tab, and get back home and share music, man, that's all that matters.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's like, from what I've seen, right, you're doing it the right way and getting that reach that, I mean, it also helps that, and I'm not just saying this, but like you have the voice of an angel. I love the way that's not meant to be, any other way but complimentary. But like you have the sound you have the sound that I think people are gravitating to. Your songs are heartfelt. They're not, there's no BS behind it. And you can tell it all comes from somewhere deep.
Yeah. And that's one thing also, like, I wanted to make sure, like, man, all this stuff that's on mainstream right now, come on.
Yeah.
I'm like, man, that's not country. That's not. And I was like, you know what? There's so many, the quote unquote, outlaw scene or whatever, there's few and far between of us, left. And I was like, you know what? Put my foot down. Let's bring that back. Put a stamp on that crap, man. And I was like, that's where it needs to be. And then, just be real and be genuine.
Yeah, it's funny because it's like, you think about what's there on the mainstream, right? That calls themselves outlaw, and it's really not. Like, it really isn't unless you're doing it the way you're doing it. Like you can't be an outlaw and then have, Sony or, somebody out of Nashville backing you 100%.
Yeah. And not only that, but like, man, just people's life stories. Like, outlaw isn't just like a fad or what you wear or anything like that. Like, man, if you don't actually live it in the real world, in silence and not having to show crap, then you're not too outlaw at the end.
Right. It's kind of funny because it's like, you see it all the time where it's like you get these guys or these girls that do start this way, right? And then, are really pretty badass, and then they get backed behind somebody or some entity that's huge, and like they just totally forget or, just lockstep with whatever the money says to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's like they always say, root of all evil, money, man.
Right.
And it's like if you can't identify yourself anymore, then it's time to change that course.
Right. I mean, there is also those that get the money, get the backing, and still do their thing, but it's not it's not the quote unquote way, either.
Yeah.
So when you're starting all this, like who are some of your influences getting into it, or did you just have a thought in your brain of this is how I want to sound, this is what I want to say, and this is it? Is there any mentors, I guess you could say, that go into what you've done?
I would say, like, as far as like mentors, as far as going into what I've done and this and that, would be again, Jeff Canada, like, speaks his mind and don't hold back. And I've always been like that, so I was like, you know what, continue that. Fuck what anybody else thinks or says. I'm doing this for me, and I'm doing it. If somebody likes the music, then good, I'll keep making more. But if they don't, well, okay, cool too, because it's not, it shouldn't be for everybody else. It should be for you.
Right.
To an extent. And no, I've just always been that way, like it was a little rough, upbringing and everything. And, after, the Army, and then also, rode for many years, an MC too, for quite some time. And then, that's just my life. That's just the way I like to live. It's just free and a little rambunctious, but, at least I'm me at the end of the day, and I don't have to, change anything.
Right. Now, when you're growing up and doing all the things, and before you pick up a guitar, like, what are you listening to? Are you listening to anything?
Oh, man, everything's always been, Hank Williams Sr., Waylon, Randy Millsap, Marty Robbins, and then whenever I could sneak it away, because, I was raised by my grandparents, so it was like a really deep Southern Baptist household. And so, I'd have to sneak my Iron Maiden and my Leonard Skinner and my, all this other stuff or whatever. So I've got like influences from all over, but I'd say that the biggest influences would be, traditional, old school country, outlaw country, Highwaymen, and then also bunch of grunge as well.
Really?
Yeah, man, Soundgarden, Alice in Chains, Audio Slave, just Chris Cornell himself. That's one of my like icons or whatever. Besides Waylon, is Chris Cornell, and like I ever since an early age, like that's who I was like I want to try to get as close to that voice as I can, training myself, but then sound still like me, and I just kept doing that, and it just kept progressing and getting better. But yeah. Like those are my two big like music idols.
There's a lot to say about that era of music, with grunge and the 90s sound and all that, because by the time this comes out, I will have turned 39 at that point. And you think about some of these bands and artists that came out, when I was growing up or when you were growing up, and it's like they don't make them like that anymore.
No. Like, and we'll never have that again.
Right.
In my opinion,
No. Like,
and so like that's why I like implementing that little grunge, and then also that taste of like blues from when I was in Arkansas, and then to the Texas country, like, and just kind of molding it. And I'm like, that's the sound right there.
Yeah, because it's one of those things where I think about even the bands and artists, like when I was in high school, in the early 2000s and shit, like there's nobody that really stands out from that time period either. I mean, you have your few, you have, maybe John Mayer, but you're not even thinking about him singing. It's more of his guitar playing, and there's a few others sprinkled in there, but there's no, in 5-10 years, nobody's going to be thinking about, anybody that came out in the early 2000s like we think about these 90s artists. Like we really don't. Like even so much as like, Darius Rucker and Hootie and the Blowfish. Like, yeah, he may have gone into the, the country world, but like they just don't make bands like that anymore.
No. I mean, people can try to, copy it or, make it as close as they want. But then again, at the end of the day, they try to copy it so much that it's not original. And so that's what kind of throws people off of, being entertained and, catch to them.
Right. And, as much as people want to shit on and bust Nickelback's balls, like I think they may be the closest thing, right? That we have to that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And even Creed to an extent, Creed came out in the 90s and the late 90s and whatever, but like I think about it all the time. Like Creed and Nickelback is really, really all we have left from that time period.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And I say that knowing that like, Pearl Jam still tours and all that, and that's fine. But like there's also a level of commercial that Pearl Jam brings to the table too that Nickelback just doesn't, and they just do it however the fuck they want and they don't care. Yeah. It's just so crazy because it's like, even think about country music, right? The bands that are out there now, I don't know that in 10 years. I mean, I hope, but I don't know that in 10 years they're still going to be doing it and relevant enough to do it the way they're doing it today.
Yeah, yeah. Because I mean, eventually, I mean, it's everybody or whatever age catches up and stuff like that. So
Right.
like, you got some of these bands that put on great, amazing shows and this, but then you got to think about it, like you said, 10, 20, 30 years from now or whatever, well, body's going to start breaking down. They're not going to be able to put on that good of a show. So are they going to be able to sit there in a chair like Johnny Cash did, and then people still be, engaged, or are people just going to be like, I'm going to find somebody else now?
Right. Right. And and that's coming from somebody that loves bands like Ragweed and Whiskey Myers and
Oh yeah.
Turnpike. But
Oh yeah.
like I don't, we're going to, as we're talking, we're going to see Turnpike finally on Saturday, right? And I can't wait. But like, I can't imagine Evan Felker singing the songs the way he does now in 10, 15 years from now. I hope he does. Don't get me wrong. I hope he does.
Yeah.
But like, and then the same thing with Cody, each Cody from Ragweed and in Whiskey, like, are they going to still have it in 10, 15 years?
Yeah.
Whiskey Myers may, just because of the style of music they play, but
I was going to say that. If out of all of them, I think Cannon, he's going to be the one. So.
Yeah. I do too, because, we just saw Whiskey play an acoustic show up here right before Christmas. And, now I've seen him in both, like acoustic and full band, the production, the whole 9 yards. And like each show didn't miss a beat. Each show, each sound, everything was just perfect,
Yep.
And like, I don't throw away the P word around too often, but like, there's something to be said about the way they just conduct themselves, I think, as a unit, that it is no bullshit.
Mm-hmm.
It is about the music. And, even if they have a quasi machine behind them or not, like, they're one of the few that is still going to do it the way they want to fucking do it.
Oh, no doubt. No doubt.
Now, how old are you, if you don't mind me asking?
Well, about to turn 33, feeling 63.
Okay. Right. So now, when you're growing up in this area, right, or in the area that you're living in, are you aware of these bands that we're talking about that haven't quite hit the, quote unquote mainstream outside of Texas and the red dirt area? Are you aware of these bands as you're growing up?
Actually, most of them, no. And the one that I actually, when I was 14, a guy named Ben Nichols, he leads Lucero. At 14 or whatever, he kind of, gave me a little chat or whatever after they played one of their smallest shows probably they've ever done back up in Arkansas, and, kept me in tune and in focus, and, gave me all the right pointers and so on. And I've, kept that with me. And nobody, even till now, a lot of people don't even know who they are.
Yeah.
But as far as like the other Texas bands and stuff where I lived, no, you only got your, usual mainstream stuff, because, being as rural as we were, you just had, I think maybe 2 stations, if that, that played country music, and everything else was either, pop or something else like that.
Yeah.
And so you didn't really hear them that much until, like, in the last, I'd say probably the last maybe 8 to 10 years, it's really gained ground or whatever. And people are starting to realize that, hey, there's a lot better music and more stuff out there than what we're getting, fed.
Right.
And then now it's just like it's taking over. And thankfully, because, real music's finally coming back.
Right. Right. I mean, you look at, as we're talking about it, I think about like the Red Clay Strays, right? They fit under this umbrella somehow, some way, and like we were fortunate. We had the Strays on, Jesus Christ, maybe year 2 of this podcast. Like, it was just before they blew up. Right. And, when we were talking to them, like, they were pulling into Washington, D.C. in a probably in a van or a bus, and doing everything themselves. Like, it was, and then it was like almost like a flick of the wrist, and they were like, everybody knows who they are.
Yeah, it's wild too.
Yeah.
And one thing I got a late start on was, that helps, no matter how much we don't like it and all, is social media and all, and getting that reach because, like I said, a lot of these stations and stuff, they won't play these, like independent artists or bands or of the like or sort, and that's what's gaining a lot of traction and being able to actually share stories without having to manipulate what you say and what you can't say. And that's really connecting with a lot of people, I think. It's like no hold back, and it's, straightforward, and this is how it is, and it, connects and reaches to a lot of other people in the world now, and them not being confined to just what they want to play on the radio or what they choose to play. Then, it's drastically changed so many other artists and bands, careers.
Yeah. And like, I don't know about you, right? Maybe this is just a me thing, and like from where I live, right? But being up here in the Northeast, like, perfect example. Like, and we've talked about this a little bit, but like, as we're talking, we're going to see Treaty Oak tonight, right? Now, what pisses me off is this, right? One, it pisses me off that they're playing a mid-size arena and it's pretty much sold out. And I say this with all the good intentions in my heart, right? One, it pisses me off that they're doing that. Two, it pisses me off that the radio stations around here are like, oh my God, Treaty Oak Revival's coming. Because they don't fucking play them on the radio up here, like, at all. It's like, how dare you? You know what I mean? And a lot of it for me is like a little bit of a gatekeeping thing where it's like, dude, I've been listening to Treaty Oak now for years. Like fuck right off.
Right?
Like I'm psyched. I'm
just jumping on the bandwagon, it seems.
Right. I'm so excited for them. Trust me. Like there's nobody that is gonna wave the Treaty Oak flag higher and more proud than I am. Right. But it's like, damn, I've waited all of this time for you to get here, and you're gonna play. The first time you play up here is gonna be to kick off a tour in a mid-sized arena. It's like, God damn it.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
But you know what? Good for them.
Heck yeah.
But
at least people are going to get to experience it, though. It's better than not at all.
That's true. But it's all the same with the other artists or bands we've talked about. Turnpike and Whiskey Myers. Like they're playing bigger rooms, and again, no radio play, no backing, no nothing. But the people are finding it and going out. So I guess, like you said, right? It's better than not, right?
Yeah, because I'm sure it'll stem. Like hopefully they'll come back and like play somewhere like TD Garden or something like that.
Right.
And just pack the place out like they do all these big arenas that they play.
Right.
But maybe it's like a test the waters or something like that. I don't know, but definitely everywhere else is like jam packed. Can't even get in if you can even get a ticket, and
right.
It's great. Especially the way they started and everything, and their own sound, and man, it's bangers, all of them.
Yeah. In living up here, it's funny because it's like I see it, but then like I'm a big Shane Smith and the Saints guy, like probably my favorite band of all time.
Hey,
and like those guys will come up here, they'll play a room for maybe 1,000 people, maybe 1,500, right? And like we've gotten real close with those guys, and then like I see them, they're gonna play back-to-back nights this month at the Ryman, sold out, right? They play Red Rocks, sold out. They play Billy Bob's, sold out. You know what I mean? Like they play bigger rooms in other places, and you can't get a ticket, but you come up here and it's like, dude, come see these guys because you're not, you're missing out. It's just so funny how different the regions are.
Oh yeah. And not only that, but the engagement, the support, and also it's just not only do they not play them on the radio stations and all these other areas as much, but then also people I hate to say it, but just don't know good music,
right. You're absolutely right, and they don't know good music, and they don't, like, how do I put this nicely? Fuck it. With a band like Treaty Oak, right? As dramatic as it may sound, and here's a little tidbit I'm going to give you on the air now. We are in talks with them to get them scheduled for the podcast, and I'm going to tell them this when we do sit down.
Oh,
right? I know this sounds dramatic, but that band pretty much saved my life in the last 16 months. Like,
yeah.
And like that right there is the power of music, right? And that's the power of the lyrics and everything else. Like, I'm sure there's going to be hundreds of shithead fucking college kids there tonight that don't give a shit about the words, right? And then there's going to be somebody like me who's pushing 40 that gives a shit about the words, because everything Sam Canty's saying, I have now lived through, unfortunately.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, and even though we've come from two very different worlds, very different parts of the country, like, that right there is the power of music. And like the same thing can be said for your stuff, where it's like you talk about things and it hurts at times, because it's like, oh, we're all the same here in this fucking thing. It's just,
yeah, man. I mean, if it hadn't been for music, I wouldn't be on this podcast right now. I can tell you that for sure.
You might have been.
Like, it's helped me through tons of things, man. Like, music's saved me quite a few times.
Right. Yeah. No, and it does. I mean, and I love that you said, I don't know if I'd, like, listen, if we can have Matt Westerman on, we can have anybody on at this point.
Well, I meant, like, I probably wouldn't even, if it hadn't been for music, I probably wouldn't even have been around still, man. Like, especially like after all the, like, things that I've had to, endure, not just, like, military wise, but like through just life in general, and then after military, and then it just keeps going and going and going. I mean, like, music's that escape and way to express everything that you can't really do, in words, especially for some hardhead grunt like me that doesn't really like talking that much about that stuff. That's the way to do it, is through my music and through playing other people's music, listening to it, and actually focusing on the words, not just some beat or catchy tune or something like that.
Yeah. Now, have you always been that way, or this is going to sound bad, but did the military make you that way? Were you always kind of like, reserved and let's not talk about, like, were you brought up that way?
I'm kind of brought up that way to an extent, especially like, any other things that would happen and stuff like that. But, I really got like that, especially after the military, but it's been probably all throughout, losing so many friends when I was, way younger, and then, having one of my best friends, whatever, is basically like a sister, get, like just flat out, somebody blew her head off at a party, and then, like, and it just keeps going and going and going. It's almost like every other year, every year, it's like that. And then military, and then after military, and then it's still the same thing keep happening. And then, yeah, man, like it's been an ongoing thing, but really got deep after military for sure.
Holy shit, Dave. That's insane. Now, what made you go into the Army? Was it just to get away? Was it something to do? Like,
no, it's been something that I was, wanting to do ever since I was a little kid. My uncle that I was named after, and then basically all the males besides my grandfather who raised me, he wasn't biological, but all the biological males in my family have, served all the way back from, even when Texas became, started becoming a state, all the way up until, it got to me and all. And so it was a little bit of that, but also it was just, I was so intrigued by it. And that's what I've always wanted to do. And I didn't want to do some, desk job or something like that. I was like, no, I want to be a damn ground pounder. And so that, that's what I ended up doing eventually. And then did that for 6.5 years. And then, got my leg, it wasn't blown up or nothing like that, but on a foot patrol and stuff like that, got my leg pretty messed up, left leg, and then that's basically all she wrote, because I planned on doing my 20 years in, and that kind of came to an abrupt halt. So it was like well, what are we gonna do now? And so that's the reason I was like, you know what, we're gonna take this serious and dump everything we can into it, and started running with that.
Damn. Now, so I mean, you're a little younger than me. So where were you deployed to?
I was over in the Horn of Africa. Spent most of the time in Djibouti, and then northern Somalia, Gulf of Aden, Ethiopia, and then countries like that are just war torn from everything from if you go to the Gulf, you got pirates. You go into the inner countries and stuff like that, you got warlords. You got ISIS, Al Shabaab, Boko Haram. So you got everything right there.
Damn.
And it's like an epicenter.
From your standpoint, right? Like, why do you think we don't hear much about that? Like, I mean, we hear about it, right? When a Somali pirate takes over a U.S. ship or whatever. But like, why is it that we don't hear much about it on the news about how bad it is over in that part of the world? We always hear about the Middle East and whatever, right?
Yeah. I'd say mainly so that, my viewpoint would be, one would be agenda, depending on who it is, at the time. But then also, two, your strategic standpoint outlook on, is it a long going operation? Is it short term? Is it in and out? Is it this? And with there, it's been a long term. I mean, up until 2021, people didn't even know about, 6 of the other bases that, we have in Africa in multiple different countries and stuff. And, one of the bases being like one of the main epicenters for, our airstrikes and stuff using drones and so on, from not just in Africa, but also over into Yemen and Afghan, Iraq and stuff like that. But then like when I was there, like first Friday on, that we were on mission or whatever, we were, providing security for that said base. And that's when they set off that double V-band in Mogadishu center. And it was like, it was the deadliest one that they've ever had. It killed 284 people. And you only had like a short little bitty story on the news, news channels and stuff like that. And that's it. And it wasn't until about 2021, I think they had to do a budget report before the House and all. And they had to, account for all these millions being used, because it hadn't been stated and, put out there as, okay, it's been used for this. And that's when it came out and everybody started finding out, oh, we have, like 12 different, bases and military installations U.S. ran, just in the continent of Africa alone, thinking, we weren't even there,
right.
Besides like maybe one or two. And so I think, yeah, it's just mainly, I would say, a strategic outlook on it, but then also agenda as well.
Right.
Depending on who it is at the time.
Right. Now we don't have to get political or anything like that, but like, do you still pay attention to a lot of that stuff? Like with the, when you have the intent of being in long term, like, do you still pay attention of what's going on in different parts of the world just to, kind of like stay into it a little bit?
Yeah, the thing that really got me recently is Trump's term. We started actually doing ground ops in Somalia to clean out all these, ISIS leaders, Boko Haram and Al Shabaab leaders. I was like, man, why couldn't they have done that when I was there? I was like, all it was like airstrikes, recon, and report and gaining intel and this. But no, you couldn't directly engage. You see a lot of stuff, but you can't ever engage unless you're directly engaged yourself.
Right.
So you just have to sit there and watch things happen and just report it. And then now they're like going in and cleaning the mess up. And I'm like, man, that should have happened when I was there. So like stuff like that, I'll keep into tune. Like when it comes to like military operations and stuff like that. But other than that, I've learned to just distance myself from all the news channels now because they're so biased. The only one really. And even though, it's a Middle Eastern, a news company or whatever, but Al Jazeera, they give you the story, they give you the facts, and then they move on to the next one and let you come to your own conclusions.
Right. Versus
spoon feeding you what to think and feel. And I was like, no, like that's why it turned me off. And so I just kind of distanced myself because it would, my blood would start boiling. I was like, that is not how it is. I was like, this place and this place, this is not what's happening. This is actually what's happening. I was actually there. It just started arguing with the TV all day.
It's funny because it is that way, isn't it? Where it's like, whether you're on the, again, and we don't usually get political, but like, whatever, like in this time, in this day and age, like it's hard not to talk about the things that are straight in our face, right? All the time. And, I don't care if you're on the left or on the right, like, I don't care what news station you listen to or whatever in this country, like it is totally geared to spoon feed whatever your already, whatever your bias is already, right? Like if you're gonna watch Fox News, you're already in that world, so whatever they tell you, you're gonna just take hook, line, and sinker. If the same thing with ABC, CBS, CNN, whatever. Like it doesn't matter, and it's pretty interesting on how there is no quote unquote news anymore, and it's all just bullshit. It's not like it was. I mean, shit. Even after 9/11, right? It was pretty unbiased still, and then it's just gotten worse and worse and worse and worse. And, like it's almost better. It would almost be better if the news just came on one time a day and that was it. And it wasn't this 24
give you
hour...
updates. Come on.
Right. Because it's like that's going to cause us to be more torn than ever because it's like it's just so much all the time. And regardless of what side you're on, you're just
trying to tell people.
What's that?
Yeah, when I try to tell people all the time, I'm like, dude, it doesn't matter if you're right or left. Hey, I was like, look at it like this: if you're getting on an airplane, right, and you're walking through the side door, and you usually see both the pilots standing there, and you see one of the pilots that you might not have liked in high school or something. And so just because that, instead of everybody getting to their destination safely, you'd rather them crash and fail. So you look at it that with, presidency wise, like just because you don't like somebody doesn't mean they're not doing it right.
Right.
I was like, you may not like them or anything else, but what is the whole, goal? And what are we trying to achieve is be better as a whole. I'm like, it doesn't matter if you're right or left, as long as your, thoughts are, hey, for your people, for your constituents and citizens, that's all that matters.
Yep. Yeah, I say it all the time. Left wing, right wing, it's all the same fucking bird.
Yeah.
It's, it's crazy. It's really, really insane.
And politicians are kind of like meteorologists. They all lie to you at some point. So.
Right. And every now and again, they might be right, and it's, so like my degree is in political science, and I got out of it a long time ago. Like once I really started to see how much bullshit there was behind it, I was like, no, I can't do this anymore because it's like, how can we one up the other person, whether it's for the right reasons or the wrong reasons? How can we one up the next person? And it's like, fuck off. Like this isn't a game. These are people's lives. You know what I mean? At some point.
Yeah. And when people start doing their own due diligence and basing things off facts and coming to their own conclusions, it'll start to get better. But we'll see when that day happens.
Right. So, with what you've got going on, right, music-wise, what's to expect for the rest of the year
now? Right now, actually, heading into the studio in March or whatever, going to be recording a new single and getting that one out, and then. From then on, probably about every other 2-3 months doing the same thing because I've done nothing but, write and stockpile songs. And it's just, getting that funding or whatever to afford to record and so on. But, it's just navigating that right now. Plan on releasing a bunch of new stuff and, just keep playing shows until, bigger shows come up and just keep earning money from that to, fund actual recordings to get more stuff out there.
Now, what's your reach like now? Like how far out do you go from home?
Oh man, I'll go as far as, somebody needs me to, as long as it, pays for my trip there, back, some food and, a little bit of cash or whatever towards bills. Because right now, I'll go all the way up, northern Oklahoma on the Kansas border, all the way to South Texas, West Texas, East Texas, Arkansas. I've been trying to set some things up. I'm about to set some things up in Colorado for this year as well. But really, I don't really have a, max distance I'll go. If people want to hear it, and as long as I can afford it and get there and back, I'll be there.
Nice. Now, when you're going out, are you taking a full band? Are you doing, how much full band solo stuff are you doing?
Oh man, right now it's almost like 80-20, like 80% solo and then 20% full band. And the downside of that is like around here and a lot of other places, they're just so small and they can't afford, full band most of the time, unless you're already, have a big following, bigger reach and stuff like that. It could be expected. And then especially, at least in the DFW area alone, I've noticed that, a lot of the mom and pop, live music venues are being shut down because of all these other, corporate venues going up and it's just really hurting it. And so that's the reason I think that a lot of us have to, venture out as far as we do to get people actually not only engaged, but be able to even play our music, because they only host, your headline, your top, artists like that. Like, I mean, in McKinney, south of us, just a few miles, they're putting in a new, like multi-million, I think almost $1 billion amphitheater that's supposed to compete with Dos Equis Pavilion that's in Dallas. And that's really hurt a lot of it. And the last really good live music venue that we had was Hanks. And then, when COVID and all that hit as well, they just went out and now we have nothing. And especially, for our music and everything, the closest places are, like Fort Worth and stuff like that, which I love playing in Fort Worth and Stockyards. And, but other than that, yeah, it's rough right now getting full band bookings.
Yeah. And I keep hearing it, especially from, the guys that I talk to that are in your area. It's the same story, and it's unfortunate because, you guys have great fucking music down there, and it needs to be heard.
Oh yeah, and I think it's starting to make a climb. Especially like you said, Trio. Look at them; they're taking over. Hell, even on all genre when they just released West Texas Degenerate, on Billboard charts and stuff. It's like people are catching on.
Yeah,
and I don't think we're too far away from people switching sides, so to speak, and that'll start taking off more as far as more venues booking more more local acts and more of this scene versus mainstream and the tickets costing like $200-300 for one dang show and all the price gouging that a lot of them do as well. And I think that's it's on the verge of kind of like cresting that mountain.
Yeah. I hope so. I really do, because I'm me personally, like, this with this podcast, we're in year 5 now, right? And I have seen it go from me talking to absolute nobodies, like have no following, to talking to people that have a following and doing it like, like you do, to talking to, people that have had radio hits, and it is so ebb and flowed in the last 5 years alone. I can only imagine what the next 5 will bring.
Oh yeah.
It's definitely interesting to watch, especially from this side, right? Where, I've talked to people where it's like, I don't think this person's going to fucking go anywhere. And then all of a sudden they're on a tour with, a major act, and it's like, oh shit. Like, I guess I got that one wrong.
Yeah, exactly. It's almost like not even hitting on some of them too.
Right.
Like, for instance, like, Parker McCollum and Hudson Westbrook and people like that.
Yeah.
Like they, just started, like, yeah, they were getting some traction, and then all of a sudden, boom, immediately up there.
Yeah. Yeah. It's crazy. It really is. 'Cause and you're right. Like, you could hear mumbles and grumbles about somebody that people are watching, and then it's like as you're hearing the mumbles and grumbles, it's like they're on a different planet already, and it's like, holy shit, like what happened? Like, did I miss it? Did I miss the bus? Like,
Yeah.
and the bus came, but the bus went so fast that you couldn't even stop it.
Yeah, yeah. Like it's wild. Like and like I said, like a big thing that has to do with that is just like social media. Honestly, like no matter how much I absolutely hate it, but to be able to reach as many people as they do without having, just 280 something shows out of the year or something like that, they're able to freaking do that, and not have to, drain everything or worry about, oh, well, how am I going to make this song, or how am I going to record and afford this song, or, go to this show. And it's helping with all that. So I think it has a big thing, a big influence for them to be able to, grow as much as they do or as fast as they do, being able to reach, all points of the world, really.
Right. No, I agree. I agree wholeheartedly. Well, I could talk forever, but I've also got to eat lunch and start pre-gaming for Treaty Oak. So, dude, we gotta do this again.
Lucky. Oh yeah, I'm down.
Yeah, man. So yeah, whenever you got shit going on or got stuff coming out, like shoot me a text and we'll do it, man. We'll get on and
definitely. Yeah, I'll let you know as we wrap up this next one, and
yeah, sounds
go
good.
From there.
Well, good luck with everything. And like, hey, if you ever come up for a Bees game, let me know. I'll be there.
Definitely. Yeah, because I've been itching to get back up there to see another Bees game, and it's been like 6-7 years almost now since I've been up there to actually see one. I saw them here, when they played Stars, but it ain't the same.
Yeah, no. Yeah, whenever you get up here, and like, if you're coming, maybe we can get you to play a couple of shows while we're up here.
I'm down for that all day. For sure. Yeah, definitely keep in tune on that one.
Yeah, absolutely. Even if it's not until next year or whatever, like we'll make it work. We'll help you along.
Oh yeah. Heck yeah, I appreciate it big time.
Anytime, man. We'll talk soon, and we talk all the time, so it's much appreciated. Your friendship is more appreciated than based on the conversations we've had already.
I appreciate that big time.
Yeah. All right, buddy. Well, we'll talk soon.
All right. I'll see you.
See ya. Well, there you have it, everyone. Our conversation with David Brown. I hope you guys enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed having it. Thanks, Dave, for taking your time and being a part of this. And that's really it. I'm not really sure what we have coming up for shows. Like, there's not much that I know of, unless something comes up. So there you are. Happy baseball season for all of you that celebrate. My Red Sox are 1-3, or 1-3, 1-2. Whatever. It's early. But anyway, have a great week, guys. And yeah. I know we put out a lot of episodes in March. So thank you all so much. Like, we had a hell of a month. We had some great numbers this month. So thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. Thank you. Like, I can't believe everybody listens to this to begin with. So thanks so much. Cheers. Have a great week. Be good to each other. And we'll see you next Monday. Next Monday April might be just singular episodes, because we got a lot of things coming up and stuff with some bigger names. So in April. So not that David Brown isn't a big name. He should be a big fucking name. Anyway, I'm just going to shut the fuck up. Guys, have a great week. Cheers.